This is how you share your games.
PlayStation, PlayStation, PlayStation. Please don't do this. I've been a PlayStation fan for pretty much all my life, you know, since the PS1. The PS1 was my very first, like, home console. And since then, I've bought pretty much every PS console. Like, I've bought the PS2, the PS3, the PS4, the PS5, the PS4 Pro, the PS5 Pro, the PS Vita, the PSP. You know, I've bought them all. And I've been a big fan of PlayStation, even during the PS3 era when, you know, things were going sideways for a lot of people and a lot of people chose Xbox 360 instead. I never had an Xbox 360. I was always PS3 and I stuck with PlayStation. I have had an Xbox One and an Xbox Series X as well now, but I've generally always been mainly on PlayStation. And to see the stuff that they're pulling this generation, it's been kind of, you know, the goodwill has gone slowly down and down and down. And now, if you're wondering why I'm making this video, you somehow haven't seen the news. PlayStation are stopping production of all physical games from 2028 onwards. So there will be no discs from 2028 onwards. And this has caused quite the uproar, naturally, you know, because it's completely limiting people's options. And it just, like, people that are physical collectors are going to have no option but to go digital from 2028 onwards. And I say this as someone who's mostly digital. I have tried to get into the physical space a little bit more and more recently, just because of kind of this whole thing in the world right now where it's like you don't really own anything. You know, it's streaming and it's subscription services, and I'm sick of it, to be quite perfectly honest with you. I want to go back to having discs, to buying movies on a Blu-ray or going to the theater rather than, you know, just watching everything on streaming. And it is convenient, you know. I have all of these different streaming services because it is convenient, but I don't want to at the same time, you know. So I'm kind of going to practice what I preach more going forward, and I'll discuss that a little bit later in the video as well. But yeah, this kind of goodwill and inertia that PlayStation has had coming into the generation, you know, from PS4. PS4 was such a fantastic cycle for PlayStation. They had banger after banger of exclusive games, and PS5 has not really been that. They've had great games. They've had some great games on PS5, and the PS5 has, no doubt about it, been an extremely successful console. But as people are kind of shifting towards, you know, playing more live service games like Fortnite and Call of Duty and Madden and EAFC, they always have, but it's become more and more of a thing where these games are now becoming the kind of main games on console and PC, right? The live service games. And PlayStation has had a bit of a push towards live service, and, you know, it hasn't really gone too well for them. They've had abject failures like Marathon. They've had some successful games as well, like Helldivers, and kind of some middling games like Marathon. I love Marathon, don't get me wrong, but it hasn't really performed to the level of like an Arc Raiders in terms of popularity, right? And yeah, I don't know. It's kind of going to be really interesting to see. PlayStation have said recently that they're planning to continue to try and explore the live service market, but I feel like a lot of that goodwill is kind of gone now. Like, there's kind of a stink around PlayStation live service. So there's that has caused kind of a bit of a downfall, with the whole Last of Us online being cancelled, and, you know, they haven't really been releasing as many single player games that they did in the PS4 era, and that's kind of caused an issue for the hardcore PlayStation audience. You know, the casuals have just been buying PlayStation because it's the default console now. But I feel like, you know, this right here is the biggest controversy in gaming in a long time. Like, you look at the comments on YouTube. Look, we'll have a look right here. Like, look, right? If we go into the comments of the Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2, this was just PlayStation's last video on YouTube. You look, every single comment is about physical games. Physical media for life. I want my discs back, Sony. Physical discs. No one's gonna let this go, Sony. No discs. Like, this is the most furor I've seen around a gaming company in a long time. And Xbox have been shitting the bed this generation. Like, they have been doing terrible things. But I don't think they've had a moment like this throughout the entire generation where everyone is at their throats. Like, you look at some of the tweets as well. Like, Gene Park from the Washington Post was on CNN discussing it. Has 1.2 million videos over here on Twitter/X. And you look at some of the actual comments as well, and it shows that some of the data is maybe a little bit skewed to make it look like more people are playing digital games than they actually are. Now, there's no doubt about it. Digital is the most popular way to play games now. Like, 80% of people are playing digital. That's true. But it's not... It doesn't paint the full picture, right? Because you look at some of the PlayStation physical/digital splits from the Insomniac leak, and now some of these games, granted, came out a good few years ago when physical was popular. It's been waning and waning as years go on, but still, I think this paints a bigger picture of what's going on, right? You look at Ghost of Tsushima, right? 71% physical. Demon's Souls, 70% physical. Miles Morales, 66% physical. Spider-Man, 66% physical. Now, some of these are because there's bundles included as well, but the overall digital number is including, games that are only digital, that you can't buy physical. So I think that skews the data. If you look at like individual games, I think it's much closer to generally being 50-50, maybe even 40% physical, 60% digital in more recent cases. MLB The Show, 39% physical, which is still a large number of the audience. And even if it is just 20% flat, it's like that is a large part of your audience still. Like, that is like PlayStation can't afford to just get rid of 20% of their audience. And I think that the furor around this now, as you can see, based on the numbers with the views on tweets and the YouTube comments, that's going to spill out into everyone talking about it outside of, this social media bubble. Because a lot of stuff, people get upset about a lot of stuff that doesn't generally end up mattering that much because it's only in the social media bubble. I feel like this has gone beyond that. This is like out on mainstream media news. I feel like everyone's talking about it. My girlfriend's dad, who's not even into games, had heard about this. This thing where physical media is kind of getting eroded by PlayStation. And it's insane to think about, really. People are upset. The people have spoken. And, PlayStation might be like, we can weather the storm. They've gone completely silent ever since their post on Twitter. I think that post has hundreds of millions of views now. And they're getting ratioed to the high heavens, which, to be honest, they're probably thinking, people will forget about this. But it doesn't seem like people are going to forget about this one. This seems like this could be maybe a bridge too far for them in terms of like, this is the breaking point with their reputation. You see Xbox's reputation is completely smashed because of the Xbox One, right? Like, their reputation never really recovered from that. They tried to go very pro-consumer, and Game Pass has been like, this thing where it's got a lot of people on side, but that took a lot of work. And still, now with them laying people off and stuff, you can see that the trust was never really there. And Sony have had the goodwill and the trust that I was mentioning, but they're like, it's death by a thousand cuts, as Colin Moriarty said on Sacred Symbols. Like, there is something to that, right? Like, you can't just continuously piss off your audience and not say anything and then just expect the audience to stick with you and be okay with it. Like, PlayStation have been radio silent. They haven't really talked to the audience at all. And there's like some benefits to that, but I feel like it's gotten to the point where, you've pissed off your audience to such a degree that you need to put out a statement. You need to clarify what you're talking about with the physical games. Is there going to be support long term for physical games and for people who are not going to buy digital? Like, say, for example, like people who have a massive collection already, are they going to be able to play those games on PS6? Are they going to be able to put a disc into a PS6 the same way you can on a PS5 with the attachable disc drive? Like, is there going to be something like that? Because obviously I think the PS6 is going to be a digital only console, but surely there has to be an option for an attachable disc drive where you can still play your old physical games. That's one question. And like, I just don't understand this, really. I don't understand the stance of like, we're getting rid of it completely. Like, there was multiple different ways they could have done this. Like, it didn't have to be so drastic, I feel like. Okay, people are going more digital as time goes on. Okay, so there's a few options they could have had, right? They could have done physical games themselves rather than bringing it out to GameStop and stuff like that, which I don't love either because they're still controlling everything then. But other than that, they could have, raised the price of physical games or something like that, like, so that physical games are I don't know, 10 bucks more, or make it a more boutique thing as well, where it's kind of like a special edition to get a disc. So you can charge 10 bucks more, 20 bucks more for physical. And now that's not an ideal situation either, but it's like, it's something at least for collectors. Like, to just completely cut them off, when PlayStation in particular, I feel like has quite a large hardcore audience that buys physical games. And I am now committing myself to buying only physical on PlayStation until there's some sort of communication from them that is satisfactory. Now, I know it's a small thing for me to do. I've reduced my PlayStation subscription as well from premium to essential, and I'm just kind of like using, like, I never do this either. Like, I'm never like, oh, I'm, you know, protesting or whatever. I never do any of this stuff. But for me personally, this is just crossing a line that they can't come back from, and I'm hoping that they see sense and reverse course. Now, are they going to reverse course? I doubt it. I honestly do doubt it at this point. It seems like they're dead set on it. But if people don't forget, and the monetary side of things is starting to get affected, that's when they will obviously think about reversing course, or at the very least come and try and talk to the people and put out a statement. Because as it seems right now, like they discussed this on Sacred Symbols as well, like it does kind of seem like PlayStation are above everyone. Like that's the way that it comes off. Like they don't need to talk to the people because they're successful anyway. They don't care about what their audience thinks. And to be honest, like they're beneath us. That's the way it comes off for me. And I do think like there's two sides of that. Like Xbox, I feel like over talk and talk to their audience way too much and like act like they're buddy with them, and then, you know, the next week, oh, we're shutting 5 studios down or whatever that we didn't mention to you at the showcase or whatever. So I do think there's a balance there, but PlayStation haven't really spoke this generation at all, so I feel like they need to do it a little bit more. And also the news came out, you know, that the PS3 store is getting shut down as well, and there's some interesting quotes out of this, like that kind of affect the way that you view what they're doing. So they noted, you know, that the PlayStation Store is shutting down, the PS3 store, so you have a certain amount of time to go and buy games on that store if you want to. And the fact that this is shutting down, you can still buy physical games whenever you want. So this is another kind of point towards why they should not get rid of this. Because in the writing, it says, we will support you being able to download the games that you bought on the store for the foreseeable future. For the foreseeable future. So that means there is a potential that later on down the line, they could revoke your ability to download the games that you've bought on the PS3. Which I just think is like, to even have that language there where they even left themselves that out is incredible. Like, that is not good enough at all. And there needs to be more focus on that. I haven't really seen anyone talking about that apart from Colin on Sacred Symbols. Like, none of the tweets I've mentioned on there. Like, that just shows to me that PS6 should not allow people to buy physical games on PS6. Because look into the future, right? In, say, 2040 or 2050, they're like, we're shutting down the PS6 store. And now, when they do that, there's no way to buy a PS6 game ever again. You know? Like, there is the possibility that the PS6 now, with the generations like getting longer and longer, that it never shuts down. But if it did, right, there's no way you can ever buy a PS6 game again. Like, at least with this, even after the PlayStation Store closes, you can still buy PS3 games physically. So it's kind of a thing where I'm like, that just, it seems insane to me that this is even a thing. Like, you know, streaming is a massive thing in TV and in music, like the streaming services like Spotify and YouTube Music. That's what I'm using now, of course, but it's like there's still options for people who want the physical side of things. You can still go buy an album, a CD, you can still go buy a Blu-ray movie, you can go buy a TV show on disc. It's like, why would there not be an option? That's my question. Like, even if there's different ways that you have to do it, or you have to raise prices, or you have to make it a boutique option, there has to be at least an option, is my thing. Yeah, and the historical irony is not lost on me either, with PlayStation specifically, you know, with the whole thing around Xbox, where they're like, this is how you share a game. And you've given the other person the disc, and now PlayStation are going in a direction where there's no discs and there's no game sharing, and they have complete control over the market. There's going to be no sales probably, or they'll do sales a lot less anyway, because, you know, they don't have to match the discs and stuff like that. Because discs, like, you look on Amazon, the price difference is incredible. So I'm going to be buying physical only, as I said, foreseeable future. I'm going to be buying discs only on PlayStation. I'll still buy digital on PC if I need to and stuff like that. But for PlayStation, I'm going to be buying discs only. And, you know, the thing is, it's like, you can get games a lot cheaper physical. Like, games that are still $70 on the digital PlayStation store are $30 on Amazon or something. And I think that is a large reason why they probably want to shut it down as well. You know, they can make a lot more money setting their own prices and having nobody else have any sort of an option to give it to them on the cheap. So yeah, I mean, that is the way that it is, I guess. I've pretty much covered everything. Also, there's been rumors of a PS Plus price increase again, which is incredible. It seems like they're trying, Xbox and PlayStation both are trying to see, it's like a social experiment on gamers to see how far they can push us. How far can we push these guys before they snap? And maybe we've just hit the breaking point. Thanks for watching, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. And we'll be back for more discussions in the future if you would like to see them. You know I kind of just rambled for 17 minutes, but I feel like I got a lot off my chest there, and I discussed everything that I wanted to discuss. So yeah, if there's any other kind of information you have or thoughts you have, let me know in the comments down below. Please do subscribe and drop a like. I was trying to think of the word to drop a like on the video. I'll see you next time. Peace out, friends.